Welcome to the Wayne Public Library's virtual author chat. My guests today are Jean Sime and Marla Sarrel. Jean Sime lives in Northwest New Jersey with her husband Eric of 28 years. She is a graduate from Rutgers University with a degree in business management and finance. Jean worked for a large retail bank for 31 years until her career shifted due to the pandemic in March of 2020. She currently is an editor, proofreader for several publishers. Jean is a kidney recipient from a living donor in June of 2019. She is a co-author in the book Because of Organ Donation, where she shares her transplant journey. In Voices 19, Their Legacies Live On, Jean is honored to share her sister Vivian's story. Vivian was not only her sister, but also her best friend. Marla Sarrel is a lifelong New Jersey resident. The only time she's lived outside of New Jersey was while attending the University of Maryland, where she received her bachelor's degree in elementary education. She then went on and completed her master's degree from Seton Hall University. She works as a second grade teacher in Morris County. Marla lives with her 2 grown sons and a 13-year-old dog. Marla was happily married for almost 30 years to her late husband, Louis Sarrel. Her contribution to Voices 19, Their Legacies Live On, is a loving tribute to her late husband, who was lost to COVID-19. Welcome, Jean and Marla. Please tell us a little more about yourselves and about the new book.
Marla, I guess I'll start then. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining today. And Janet, thank you so much for having us tonight and for all the support that you've given us with our Voices 19 book. So just a little bit about myself. Actually, the bio says most of it. Currently working with a few different publishers, specializing in children's books, and working with the illustrators and communicating with the client from start to finish, and basically being a publishing coordinator for BC Books LLC. I'm happy to be here. Unfortunately, due to the reason why I'm here, because I lost my sister to COVID-19 in April of 2020, which was at the very, very beginning of when the pandemic hit us heavy in the Northeast. My sister was a healthcare worker. She worked in the emergency department for a local hospital, and she got hit very, very quickly, and unfortunately passed very, very quickly as well. But I'm honored that I have an opportunity to share her story. I think it's really, really important that we talk about our loved ones, we say their name, and their legacies are living on through us. So this book, as you can see behind me, and so I have the background, so it's not going to come up well, but here we go. Voices 19 is a collaboration of 19 stories of loved ones who have lost someone to COVID. We came up with the title Voices 19 because we are their voices now, and the 19 correlates to COVID-19. And this is my sister Vivian. Again, I don't know if you'll be able to see the picture or not. There you go. Okay. And my chapter is the first chapter, and it's called Heaven Needed a Hero, because she was a hero. She was a healthcare worker. Healthcare workers, even today, with, even, before the pandemic, they are heroes, and they are on the front line. And especially during the pandemic, she was right there. So I'm honored to be able to do something for her. This is a part of history. It is a book of our times. It is a book that I feel every library should have, every school should have, because it is a part of history. And I just want to thank Brenda Cortez. She is actually watching as well. She is our collaborator, publisher, our book coach, writing coach. and a wonderful friend of mine, personal friend of mine, who was inspired to put this book together because of the grief that I was suffering and still suffering from the loss of my sister. And together we were thinking about a previous book that she had just released, which was 25 stories of us. I'm one of the people who shared their transplant story and their journey. So it was comprised of donors, recipients, and donor families. So she asked me if this would help with my grief by sharing my sister's story, and if that was possible, that we can invite other people suffering as I was suffering from the COVID community to join us as well. And together we reached out to 18 other families that I have met through my many different support groups out there who were strangers and are my family, and I love them. And together we're getting through this, and we're taking this journey together, and thank goodness, because it's a very lonely journey. And you have to, in my opinion, it helps if you speak with like-minded people who are in the same situation as you. And I'm just so proud of everyone. And I thank not only Brenda, but all of the co-authors as well for their bravery and courage to share their story, their loved one's stories in this beautiful book. And I thank Marla for being here tonight. She's been amazing, wonderful support. And I'm just glad that she's here with me. So long-winded, but here I am.
Thank you, Jean. Marla, did you want to say a few words?
Sure. I was very fortunate to have met Jean. She was one of the very first people I met, actually. I as well lost my husband very early on. You know, he contracted COVID of March of 2020. And after being on a ventilator, he ended up passing 3 days after his birthday in April of 2020. And there was nothing. People calling me, you need to join widow groups. I said, I need a COVID group. I did not want to hear from other widows because it was all very different. We couldn't be there with them. There was no rituals. It was just very different. And we were locked in our house. And I did join. I just looked up the date, May 14th, I found a COVID support group for loss. And I believe I met Jean very early on because we both lived not far from each other. And I want to say a year later, Jean contacted me and said, I have a strange question to ask you. And she started telling me about the book. And I answered her and said, I have goosebumps right now because one of the last thing my husband said to me, and we did not talk very long. He was only in the hospital 3 days before going on the ventilator. And I did not want to tire him or exhaust him because he was going to get better. So we'll talk after. And one of the things he said to me was, I have to write a book. And I said, no problem. We'll write it together this summer on the beach. We'll sit. And Jean said to me, oh, well, if you're going to write your own book, that's okay, great. And I said, no, I wasn't writing a book. He wanted a book. So I said, clearly this is him letting me know he still wants his story told. And I just am so fortunate I just think of how many people have passed from COVID. For Lewis to be one of the 19 people chosen in this book, I don't know, it just makes me so proud and humbled. But every one of our stories represents someone else. Because in the very beginning, if you're listening to the news, they're only talking about the percentage and the numbers and how many deaths, and they're not a number. they were a person. And we always say you need to start saying their name first. We need to talk their name. They're not ever forgotten.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I got involved in the book. And I am so grateful his story is still out there, especially because he wanted his story told.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing a little bit about your sister and your late husband. Is there, I've read your entries in the book. Were there any memories about Viv and about Lewis that you wanted to share tonight?
There, you know what? There's so many memories, and to pick one of them would be unfair. But we're just talking about, you know, the book and, you know, writing the book. My sister, how can I put it nicely? She liked to talk. She had the gift of gab. God bless her. I don't, but she does. She was great for a long car ride. So I remember we drove to Niagara Falls from New Jersey, and it was close to 9 hours, and she spoke the entire time. So we always kidded her if anyone needed to stay awake in a long drive, to invite my sister Vivian for the ride, because she'll keep you awake. And even she was very inquisitive. She always wanted to learn and had a million questions, to the point that my dad used to say to her, "Are you done writing that book yet?" Unfortunately, she never wrote that book, but I'm here to tell her story. So in turn, I guess I wrote a book for her. So thank you for asking.
You're welcome.
I was thinking about that, and I did write stories in the book, but I was thinking of other stories that just made me laugh that weren't in the book, that might describe him a little as well. You know, we got married. I was 24. We went on our honeymoon, and we were going to go snorkeling. We were in Jamaica, and he was so sweet. "Oh, are you sure you want to go? Are you okay? The swimming?" I was like, wow, he's so considerate and really is caring so much. And I said, yes, it'll be fun. And we went snorkeling. And then when we got back on the boat after, he turns to me and says, "That was really fun. I was scared." I was like, so you really didn't care about me. You wanted me to say I'm scared so you don't have to do it. So, because he was a big, strong guy. So I thought that was very funny. And another thing I was thinking about, he was in sales. So he knew, he was, before GPS, could tell you how to get anywhere. But his directions were always make a right at this restaurant or a left at this bar. Like it was always based on something. And he would say, "No, I know where I am. I've been lost here before." And, it was just funny. We always used to laugh. And those weren't in the book, but those are just who he was also.
Mm-hmm. And if I can add to that, as you can see, the book is not sad. The book, Voices 19, is a celebration of life. And there are no political views in this book. It is strictly a dedication to our loved ones. And this book is not only about our 19 loved ones that we lost, it's for the entire community. Anyone who has lost someone to COVID, and really anyone who has been affected by the pandemic, because there's tremendous loss due to this pandemic, not only human loss, but also jobs, financial security, education. The kids were home, self-learning. So this book is a lot more than just about our loved ones. It's a celebration of their life. It's the funny stories about them. It's how they've touched our lives. And again, Brenda dedicated this not only to my sister, which was the inspiration to start this project, but it's dedicated to everyone. And we hope that people will understand that and see that and pick up a copy and just embrace our loved ones. Only 19 of us in that chapter, but there's over 1 million now. And again, just say their name. They were our moms and our dads, our grandparents, our brothers, our sisters, and our children. The youngest person that we have a chapter written about is Anna, who was only 13. So COVID doesn't discriminate. We also have an author that is from the UK, Annette, and she lost her dad, Ray. So we invited her as well. So it's no geographical limits. Doesn't matter, race, sex, politics, whatever. It took many people, unfortunately. But we just hope that people enjoy the celebration and the tribute to our loved ones.
We want them to be remembered for who they were, not, oh, they died of COVID.
Mm-hmm.
COVID is, a bump in the road. Unfortunately, it was like a ditch, but it's not who they were as they were here. Jean talks about, and I also talk about, on their headstone or footstone, it has a birth date and a day of passing, but the dash in between is really who they were. So that's what we wanted out of this book as well, who they were as a person, not how they passed, because the world was upside down and crazy. But just like they're not a statistic, they were a person who lived and touched so many lives.
Yeah. And they were not a number as the news portrayed it. As the news every day, it was, how many people did we lose today? They didn't say that Vivian Meitzler was my sister or Louis Sarrel was Marla's husband. All they concentrated on was the numbers. Well, you know what? We're over 1 million now. And I know my sister was always 1 in a million. Sadly, now she's 1 of the million.
You mentioned a little bit about what inspired you to write the story. The actual writing, like choosing what to write about Vivian, about Louis. Like, how did you go about deciding what moments to put into that their part of the book?
That is an excellent question. And I know Brenda is on and she'll probably smile, but it was hard. And I can say for myself, and I know some of the other co-authors' experiences as well, we probably wrote it a few different times, a few different ways, because we wanted it to be right. And my sister, I didn't go into full details of her loss and her sickness and the hospital stay. I really was very, just very, I can't even think of the word, but it wasn't very deep. I didn't get into the deepness of it because my sister would not want someone to pick up her chapter and feel sorry for her or to feel bad for her. So I collaborated with her husband, Timothy, and my nephew, Stephen. I invited them as well. So they each have a section of Vivian's chapter, because we had so much fun with her. And there were so many funny stories about her and just explaining her personality and how important her family was to her. And she would do anything. She would give you the shirt off her back if she could to help you. She might not have been, rich and have, the yacht on the ocean, but she had kindness and she loved her family. So I don't know if I answered your question or not, because I went off on a tangent there. Sorry.
You did. Well, you as you said, you didn't focus on any of the negative aspects. You actually decided to focus on her life and the joy that she brought to all of them.
Yeah, I tried to. I mean, it's hard not to get emotional input, you know, your feelings and just what a loss it is without her. But Brenda has been amazing. She is an amazing book coach and author and publisher, and she worked her magic on everyone's chapter. So I know for myself, I'm not a writer. I work with authors, but I am not a writer myself. And I'm just appreciative because she took my words and made a beautiful chapter for my sister. So
I felt with writing it, I really have no problem writing my feelings, my words, expressing myself. I struggled because that wasn't what I wanted for the chapter. I wanted it to be his story. Would he want this in it? What would he want in it? So I sat, and I also know he had a life before we met too. So I spoke with his brother and different things. And as just like Jean, I did not focus on the passing. I focused on how he touched so many people's lives and kind of meld them together, that what people did to show their love for him, like his friends did a car parade of, you know, because they couldn't be with us. We couldn't have the funeral. It was Zoomed. And so it just that it was so sad that someone who loved life and loved people had to die alone and could not have the proper send-off that they deserve. So that's where I struggled with writing, because I wanted to figure out what he would want in the story. And like Jean, I made, you know, you change different ways. And if I had another year to write it, I would have changed it 100 more times probably. But, you know, I do think it ended up, thanks to Brenda, a beautiful tribute to him that I think he would be very happy with.
Yes, I read both and they were beautiful. Yes, it was really nice to read them and get a sense of both Vivian and Louis as they were, as you both presented them. What was the most difficult part of the writing process for you?
For me, I would say just reliving the nightmare again, and just feeling helpless, because as Marla said, you know, we couldn't be with them. We couldn't say goodbye. Some of us couldn't even have a funeral. I was able to have a funeral for my sister. We were able to have a funeral for her, 30 minutes, and we can invite 9 people. Who do you choose from your family to say goodbye? Some families didn't have funerals. They didn't have caskets. They were unfortunately buried as they were in the hospital. The burial itself, only one person could go with the funeral director to the cemetery to witness her burial. The rest of us were in a car, a lineup of cars outside of the cemetery. There were no goodbyes. I mean, and that was no way to celebrate her. She would be very, very upset. Very upset. She always told me and my brother-in-law and my nephew that, God forbid, whenever that day comes, she wants a purple casket, because purple was the favorite color of Donny Osmond. And my sister loved Donny Osmond. She would sit in front of the television when she was probably like 12, 13. I can visualize this on the floor with her purple socks. And she was screaming at the TV because he was singing Puppy Love to her. So we found a purple casket for her, a very nice purple casket. And she always wanted an open casket. We were fortunate that we did have an open casket because we can only see her. But unfortunately, it was only us that she saw. It wasn't her friends or her coworkers or anyone. So it just wasn't fair to her. You know, she didn't deserve that. But, you know, we found ways, the COVID community has found ways to celebrate our loved ones. Some of us have had celebrations of lives after the fact. There are many memorials that are being sent out, set up in various states across the country, as well as international. Viv has been honored in Ireland and the UK and Poland, as well as the United States, thanks to the kindness of grieving families. Our other grieving families came up with these ideas because they had no closure either. So, you know, I'm so appreciative of our community because we came together in our grief to help each other and support each other. And what can we do? You know, there was no way for us to say goodbye to our loved ones, and they deserve so much more. So I'm just appreciative that these strangers, there's thousands and thousands of them in these different support groups. That took me forever to find any type of support group. Marla was pretty good at finding something the following month. I searched, and the only one that I can, because remember, we were in lockdown. You couldn't go see a therapist to help you. They weren't even Zooming for a therapist at that point. So I found a COVID group. It was actually in the UK. And that's where I met Anna Allen, who is one of our co-authors. And eventually I was blessed to find so many different COVID communities because the numbers were going up, and there was a need for it. And again, like-minded people who are in the same situation as you, is the best kind of therapy. Because even if you're speaking to a therapist, they are professional, they know what to say, but did they lose someone? Do they feel that pain inside like we felt? Probably not. So, you know, I'm fortunate and just blessed that I've met all these amazing people, and that we have, you know, the 18 other families that we were able to invite. But there are a lot of stories to be told. And I would tell anyone who is grieving and wants to do something. Maybe they don't want to be as elaborate as a book, which Brenda would gladly help them with, memoirs, or just, you know, sharing their loved one's story. It could be something simple, just like writing in a journal, or you know, just going on a podcast or a Zoom, or, you know, something similar to this, and just sharing their loved one's stories, whatever you need to do to keep their memory alive. And it's personal to each individual person what they want to do. Some people are still grieving deeply, and it's been over 2 years, and they're not ready, and that's okay, because grief is difficult and it's different for everyone. You know, there's so many different stages of grief. What I'm trying to do this year, which is going into the third year, is gratitude. I'm trying to focus on being grateful for all the time that we had together. Because if I focus on the other parts of grief, it's not healthy. So I have to remind myself every day, but we're getting there. We're getting there with help of my community, my friends, my family. We're getting there. So
I remember when I first found a group. It was less than a month after he passed, and I would lie on my bed bawling. And my kids would come in and say, "Why are you reading these things if they're making you cry?" And I'd say, "I don't know. I just have to." Because reading other people's stories that were very similar to yours, and realizing the COVID roller coaster just made you feel part of something. And like Jean was saying, having, you know, we would talk in our groups and Zooms and say, how is there nothing like a cancer society, or there's nothing, because it's still happening. So because of that, Barry started in loving memory, and these are different authors, and Hannah did faces of COVID victims, and Rosie started amazing tributes all over the world.
Yellow Heart Memorial.
My family came up with a slogan for this jab's for you, for who you were going to get vaccinated for, to hopefully get people to be less hesitant if they're not doing it for themselves. Are you doing it so you can even go to a bar? Are you doing it so, in memory of someone, or just to go somewhere? And we really had to form our own community. And it is by far the most amazing group of people that are supportive. It doesn't matter. I mean, I feel I could talk to any of the million people's family in the United States, and they would all feel the same way. So if anybody is just starting this journey or stuck in this journey, my first piece of advice, besides finding a group, would be as simple as cutting a yellow heart out of construction paper and sticking it on your window.
Yeah.
And I did that right away, and it's still there, and it still gives me a sense of peace.
Yes.
And I see it when I go to family members' houses. And I think back to that time where the world was so upside down, and my parents were in Florida, I'm in New Jersey. They couldn't come home. We wouldn't let them come home. How hard that must have been for them, for their daughter and grandchildren to be dealing with all of this. And my husband, they considered a son, how hard that they couldn't be here for any of us. Like, it just wasn't normal.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
You've mentioned family and friends and the community. Have you gotten any feedback from anyone about what you've written about the book, about your entries, about the stories that you told about Vivian and Lewis?
Yes, we've actually gotten a lot of feedback. Even on Amazon, we've gotten a lot of feedback on the book. We became a #1 new release. I think it was a week or two after we released the book in April. So people appreciate it, because even if they didn't lose someone from COVID per se, grief is very hard to deal with. And I think it inspires people to really reflect and share their loved ones' stories when they're ready. Whether it's at your dining room table, during your holidays, whatever it is, sharing a meal that Viv used to make, sharing her recipe, or just carrying traditions on that she would do. I just think that our book has inspired so many people just to do those things. And they're simple things. They're not, tremendous things, but whatever they need to do to keep their loved ones alive, and it's about celebrating them. I can't stress that enough. It's celebrating them and talking about them and letting the world know who they were. Not my sister was 3,266 who passed on April 16th, 2020. She will never be remembered as that. She will be remembered as a mom and a wife and my sister and a daughter and a friend. That's what she's going to be remembered as. And this book puts the faces and the names behind COVID-19. And I think having something, physical, that you can go to the library and you can pick this up, or you can go, to Amazon or one of the other avenues and purchase it yourself, or, go to one of the authors and reach out to them. if we can inspire one person, it's worth it because it's giving back. Our loved ones gave so much to us. They deserve this. All of our loved ones deserve it. So we just want to give back. And again, it's dedicated to anyone who's lost someone to COVID. Over 1 million people now. Who would have thought it would have been over 1 million people? So yes, I think overall, 100%, the feedback has been amazing. So thank you for asking that. Marla, you have anything for that?
Personal feedback that I've gotten that has meant so much to me have been from Lewis's friends from growing up that, you know, we're friends with him in elementary school and played football with him and all of that, who have said to me, you really nailed it. You really captured who Lewis was. And that meant the world to me to hear that from some of his friends, because that's what I was trying to do. And also from other people that have never met him that tell me I now know who he was. I can figure him out now. Those are my personal feedbacks that mean the most to me.
Wow, that's great. That's wonderful to hear that you captured him so well on the page, and I hope that they've provided you with stories and giving you more information about the person they knew.
There was a lot of stories. Woo, there's a lot of stories.
And I think also some of the feedback that we've gotten is not everyone is ready to talk about their loss. Even again, it's been over 2 years, but you don't put a time frame on grief. That never goes away. It gets tucked away, but it never goes away. And what they don't, even though we not only lost loved ones, but we lost part of ourselves, which people don't understand that, especially when you're so close to your loved one, and the way it happened and the lack of goodbyes. And it was just like a train wreck, literally, especially in the beginning. And I think our book also lets people know that they're not alone. And if they're not ready to come forward and talk about it and share their loved one's story, that's okay. But if they read this, they'll relate to many of our stories, and each of our stories is different. We each took a different angle on it, which is fine. Some people were more comfortable going into details. Some people, we just focused on celebration and all the things that they've, all the lives that they've touched. So, because being alone is it's sad, and no one should be alone on a grief journey. So we're there. I mean, all 19 of us, if anyone needs to reach out, we're not professional therapists or doctors, but we're support, and we can talk to you and we can point you in the right direction. So even in the book there, Brenda added a section in there for surviving grief. And we're going to survive, and we're also going to thrive. Our loved ones want us to.
I was going to say, that's what they want for us.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Is there one thing that you would like us, everyone, President, anybody who will watch the video in the future, one thing you want them to know about Vivian and about Lewis?
There's so many things, like I mentioned before, but just be kind. She was very kind, empathetic. Live your dash. She lived her dash. She lived for every moment that she had. Anytime it was, her day off, she would call me and say, I'm off today. What are we doing? Because if you can't do anything, I'm still going out. And you know what? It's a great attitude to have, because life is short. I mean, I don't think she ever thought about that. I mean, really thought about that in an instant, literally, it could happen. I never thought about, I of course thought about it, and we've had losses in our family, but nothing can compare to this. Nothing can compare. So, just with Viv, I would say, enjoy life, make the best out of everything. Share, be kind, be empathetic, laugh. Laughter, so important. You get all these wrinkles if you don't laugh. So, but she's amazing. She's forever my sister. She'll forever be my best friend. My best friend. And I just wish all of you got to know her, but you will. You'll read her chapter and you'll get to learn how amazing she was and still is. Thank you.
I would say, I'm asked this question a lot, and I feel like every time I say something different because there is so many things. But Louis, his personality, he was bigger than any room. He was a born salesman. He could talk to a wall and find something in common with them. That was what was also so special, as our nieces and nephews, aren't babies anymore. He would find something special to bond with each one over, whether it was a sport or cooking or anything. He would find something and he would remember you. And he would make sure he spoke to his friends from when he was little. And he just always was concerned that other people were okay. And he was the go-to person. Oh, I have a leak. Oh, Louis will know who to call. Oh, I need my driveway done. Oh, Louis will know who to call. So he was always, so I think not long after he passed, something happened. I'm like, wait, who do I call? I don't have Louis to say, who do I call? Or what do I do? So, that's the kind of person even in the hospital, I got letters and messages from nurses in the hospital about how he touched their lives for time that they knew him, and got flowers from the hospital when he passed, because in a short time made such a difference and made somebody feel special. Mm-hmm. So that's really what I would want people to know and to remember about him. And family was everything. I mean, his brother, he spoke with him umpteen times a day. And, thank God we're all still really close, because, family is still there. And even at the funeral, he was buried in his hospital gown, and they wouldn't open the casket or anything. And they told us we can have 5 people. And that included the rabbi and the funeral director. So I said, well, I have 2 sons. He has a brother. I'll sit in the car. Or the funeral director will sit in the car. Like, my boys needed to be there. His brother needed to be there. So the funeral director sat in the car. And like you were saying, we were so fortunate to even be given that little thing, but there was no open casket. I called, what are you dressing him in? Oh, we don't do that. We're not opening it. Mm-hmm. So we gave them things. They told us they were putting it in the casket, but we don't know. So someone was bigger than life personality should be remembered for being bigger than life. And that's for all of our people. They were somebody, you know, and they mattered.
Yeah. Yeah. And their voices are being heard, not only through this book, but through our community. We are very, very loud and proud of our loved ones. And, you know, their legacies live on. That's the title. And voices, that's how we came up with the name Voices 19, because their voices are being heard and need to be heard, because it was just not fair what happened. They were victims, unfortunately. And but we're going to carry on their legacy for sure, and do it the right way. And I know I'm just so proud of my co-authors, and just so many that I have met, you know, through social media in our COVID community. It's just amazing, their stories and their strength. And you know, unfortunately, COVID is still here. Thank goodness, you know, there's means to try and control the death numbers with the vaccines. But we're just proud of everyone. And we're still getting through it. And that's okay, as long as we go through it together. And I truly believe that our loved ones are together up in heaven, and they brought us together. And we have said this so many times, that they saw us suffering, and they brought our new family together to help each other get through it. And you know, just amazing people. You know, especially, you know, Brenda coming up with this idea to give us this opportunity, and you know, all of the 18 other families that we brought together, and you know, all the other loved ones who have been lost and their families. I mean, we're just so thankful for each other. And as I said, my chapter 3 is gratitude, so I make sure that I say thank you.
I want to thank you, Janet, for bringing this book to the library, because I do think it should be in all different libraries. People always want to read stories of people that were on the Titanic or that were in different things. So these are firsthand stories that are not political. They are not,
Yes.
you know, anything like that. They're just stories. So I wish every library would get it, and school. So thank you for doing it tonight and bringing us into the library.
Yes.
You're very welcome. And I thank both of you for joining the chat, for agreeing to do the chat. I read the chapters, and I am glad that I was able to learn a little bit more about Vivian and about Louis, and what special people they were, and how they contributed to their community, and how they brought so much joy to their families. So I'm very thankful to both of you for coming on today and telling us a little bit more about the special individuals in your life that unfortunately passed to COVID-19, but how special they were, and how much they gave, and how much you all loved them. Again, I'm very happy that we got this opportunity to chat, and that you were able to share your stories, and encourage people to read the book and to join communities, and to, if they've also gone through it, to maybe find an outlet, find a community, just resources that they can also join, and to work through. Grief is hard.
Yeah. And they can also join our Facebook page, which is Voices 19. We have updates, we have guest speakers, others who are sharing their story. any other speaking engagements that we have, or any book festivals that we're attending, or anywhere that we can have a platform just to share our loved ones' stories. We will post it there, as well as Instagram. And if folks are interested in either purchasing a copy for themselves, maybe they want to give it to someone who could be inspired by our stories, or even their local library. If we had one person, each person donate a copy to their library, that's just spreading the message even more. So they can find it at Amazon.com under Voices 19, Their Legacy Lives On by Brenda E. Cortez. So
And
we appreciate it.
I know that it's in the library at the high school in the district that I work in. They put a copy in the high school library.
That's awesome. Awesome.